This is the most accurate fight prediction for Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira. Let's go.
The rules are exactly what I expect. Keep yourself protected. When I tell you to stop, you stop. If you want to touch gloves, now's the time. God bless.
Charles Oliveira confirmed the title of the main contender for the title fight. He defeated the fighter who was supposed to fight Islam next in just one round. But in the end, Oliveira ruined the plans of the main promotion, and now he rightfully deserves a second title chance. Hello fighters, the MMA Predictions channel is with you. In this video, I will give a prediction for the second fight between lightweight champion Islam Makhachev and challenger Charles Oliveira. But before starting this video, as usual, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and like it so that as many fans as possible can see this release. As we know, Charles Oliveira is a fighter with a history that is unlikely to ever repeat itself. He began his career in the main promotion of the world as a young fighter and received a lot of unnecessary defeats. It seemed that due to his age and not very strong mental attitude, he would soon be fired from the main promotion. But time goes by, and at the same time Charles's mental state is rapidly moving up. He begins to defeat opponent after opponent, and as a result he has a huge series of victories, after which the company, seeing his merits, gives him a title chance in a duel against Michael Chandler. The fight was not easy for the Brazilian, but he was able to knock out the American in the second round and become a full-fledged champion after he went to the first defense of the title against Dustin Poirier, in which he was also not without difficulties, but was able to win and defend his title. He went to the second fight by failing the weigh-in, and thus he was deprived of the title of champion. Although he defeated Justin Gaethje, he was not given the belt. And just the same, a new prospect of this division loomed on the horizon under the name of Islam Makhachev. The main promotion of the world decided to organize this fight. The fight was for the title of the undisputed champion, and the belt was again vacant. This time, Charles failed to win a victory, and thus he loses the chance to become a full-fledged champion. It seemed that everything, the Brazilian's career came to an end, because in a duel against Islam, Charles seemed to be not his own. After a while, the company decides to re-give the former champion a chance to return the belt, but first he had to pass the second contender of this weight, Beneil Darius, whom, as we remember, he knocked out in the first round, and now, after so much hard work, he is again in the status of the main contender. The UFC, of course, may not give the title fight to the Brazilian and, for example, wait for the denouement of the Poirier-Gaethje fight, but we will talk about this in a separate video. But right now, let's take a look at this fight in order to understand who the true king of lightweight is. Percussive style. Islam Makhachev's striking technique has recently gone uphill. He is a unique lightweight fighter. He has the lowest percentage of missed punches. Given how competitive lightweight, this is a serious achievement. Oliveira will have to try to knock out Makhachev. He is not used to taking risks. He always acts according to plan. Many Islam can be reproached for not being spectacular fights. Then I will have a counter question for such fans. What other fighter with such a low percentage of missed punches was able to tightly knock out Tibau, send Ramos to a hard knockdown? You should also pay attention to the knockdown in the first fight against Charles. At first glance it seems that Islam is a mediocre fighter with an ordinary blow, but this is not true. Islam has a unique style with which he inflicts maximum damage on his opponent while not giving him a chance to respond with a similar blow. Until now, some people underestimate the striking power of Makhachev, but in vain. I'm sure the Bronx treats the power of Islam with due respect. Otherwise, everything can end sadly for him. The striking technique of the former champion is also growing with quick steps. Lately, he has progressed a lot in this aspect. He has connected various kicks, sharp elbows, and most importantly knockout blows to his arsenal. He was able to knock down Justin Gaethje. It deserves respect. You can also say about his recent fight against Darius, in which the Brazilian sensationally knocked him out. Remind me who else managed to repeat this. this, nothing comes to mind, so if I missed something, then please welcome to the comments. Recently, more and more fans began to compare Oliveira and Ferguson. Maybe they are somehow similar, they have a similar fighting style, and so on. But this is not entirely true. The Brazilian, unlike Tony, has a good strong shot, and the former champion also looks much better on the ground. But maybe Oliveira took a few chips from Tony Ferguson's technique, but this does not mean that they are now similar. Tony Ferguson and Charles Oliveira are two completely different fighters. What can be said in the end, no matter how much Charles progresses in striking technique, Islam with his uncomfortable style will not allow him to do anything, and therefore I will choose a fighter from Dagestan for the favorites. Playing from below. Charles Oliveira is a very dangerous fighter. As soon as you find yourself in a fight with him, you have a lot of problems, and no matter what position you are in, Charles will figure out how to finish his opponent. But there is one small but. As I noticed from the Brazilian's previous fights with strong and stocky fighters, Oliveira is not easy. Remember the same fight against Chandler. The American practically did not allow the former champion to do anything. Even when Oliveira took his back, Michael left this position without any problems and was even able to arrange his grand and pound on Charles's face. It was the same with Kevin Lee when the American still had a gas tank. He easily countered all Oliveira's attempts to make pay. He was even able to translate the Brazilian a couple of times, but when Kevin's strength left, then Oliveira was able to completely neutralize the American. And also do not forget about their fight in which Islam easily translated and held Oliveira, and I am pushing you to that. Islam is also a big fighter for the lightweight division. Now I will tell you everything in more detail. Islam has been practicing wrestling since early childhood. He has a lot of experience in competitions, and in addition to the achievements of Islam in wrestling, he has a sparring partner who can clearly increase Makhachev's skill in wrestling. This is Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm sure he told him all the main tricks, so that no one could fight back against him. So back to physical strength, Islam, as well as Kevin Lee and Michael Chandler, can be said to be a healthy fighter for lightweight. His waist, back are quite wide, and for Charles Oliveira there will be a real problem to translate and force the Russian to surrender. As I said earlier, the Brazilian had problems with major fighters throughout his career, and Islam Makhachev is no exception. He is just as wiry and dangerous a fighter. The favorite in the fight will be Islam Makhachev without hesitation. I gave the arguments why Islam is the favorite above. Cardio spirit. In terms of endurance, Makhachev has not yet been tested. The maximum where he went is in the 5th round. But given what kind of team Islam has, I'm sure he will have the highest level of training. His team includes a member of the UFS Hall of Fame, Khabib Nurmagomedov, who has always been famous for his excellent reserve of strength, as well as the head coach of the ACA gym, Javier Mendez, who brought up such champions as Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. In general, I am 100% sure in terms of endurance to prepare without any problems. As for Charles Oliveira, also taking into account his fights, nothing can be said about endurance. In his past fights, he finished his opponents, and only with Tony Ferguson, they went through all 3 rounds. But given that the Brazilian is a former champion, he was clearly preparing for his defenses for all 5 rounds, and he roughly estimates how the preparation and the fight itself will go. But all the same, due to the fact that Islam has such a coaching staff, I will choose him as the favorite in cardio. As for the spirit, here I will also believe in Islam, which will always go forward and will not allow you to do anything at all. We have already seen this in the fight against Volkanovski. Forecast. I think that the fight will be held in a similar style as their first confrontation. Perhaps Oliveira will take into account some mistakes and will act more carefully, but Islam will not study mistakes. He is intensively preparing for this fight and will clearly surpass his opponent. The future of fighters. Islam will continue to defend his lightweight title after the victory. The option of moving to welterweight is not ruled out, but as long as he has things to do in the lightweight. As for Charles, he is unlikely to ever get a title chance again, at least while Makhachev is on the throne.